So this is my brand new to me 1993 Volvo 240. I recently picked it up and I'm super happy with the find. This is pretty much the Volvo that got me searching originally, leading to my Volvo 850 that you may have seen on this channel. So what this video is primarily going to be about is a small issue with the gauge cluster, primarily the illumination bulbs being burnt out. So it was totally dark at night. And then the adventure that this seemingly simple swap made for, and sometimes that's what makes owning an older vehicle fun. So when I thought that changing out these illumination bulbs was just going to be a straightforward fix, I started with pulling out the gauge cluster out so I could pull the old bulbs out and replace them. This was a pretty straightforward and satisfying process, as you'll see here. Note the Torx head screws that were holding all this in. And then once I got the gauge cluster pulled out enough, I pulled the bulbs out, which you can see here, and both were burnt out. There were two. These little glass bulbs are pretty much integrated into this plastic bulb holder in the late 240s. So after going to the store various times, I cannot find the right specification of bulb to go into that bulb holder. And to ship these two little bulbs online was really costly for what they are. Luckily, I have some Volvo enthusiast family members who pointed me in the right direction of a parts car. So here I am, feeling like a thief in the night, going to check out this parts car. Some pretty neat vehicles sitting out here. And here it is, the Volvo 240 Turbo. So this is an 80s model, which I saw by the headlights. And while all these 240s built through the 70s to 1993 have some small differences, some small changes throughout the years, most things are still fundamentally the same. So I started extracting this gauge cluster out to see what I was working with. I didn't know at this point what would work. And then remember those Torx head screws? Well, when I drove over here, I only brought a Torx head screwdriver, and on this car, they turned out to be a Phillips head. So with that, I ended up searching the part vehicles just looking for a Phillips head screwdriver. I thought there must be one in here somewhere. And peered into the parts cars. Eventually though, I did track down a Phillips head screwdriver and we got back to work. I'm also glad that I didn't disturb any mice families. Another interesting thing is these more early speedometers, they run off a mechanical wire. And in the late 240s, the speedometers aren't mechanical, they're electric. So I got the gauge cluster out and popped out the illumination bulbs, and like I'd suspected, they were a different size. But the nice thing about these older holders is you're actually able to swap out the bulbs easily. They weren't a proprietary integrated bulb. Popped it back together a bit. Hopped in my car with the cluster to head home and see what I could do. Now here I am unplugging my cluster in my 93 240 so that I can pull it out, bring it inside with the other gauge cluster, and start figuring out what I can do. Here on the right is the gauge cluster from my car. The main difference you'll see is the clock there on the left. Now we'll roll on over to the cluster pulled out of the parts car, and again the main difference you'll see from this view is the tachometer there on the left instead of my clock. So after some hard thinking and honestly enjoying playing around with these instrument panels, let me show you what I came up with. So first I'll show you the instrument panel out of the project car, and you'll see now the quartz clock is in the place of the tachometer. There's the back of the clock there on the right. Even being some years apart and slightly different cars, these are both 240 series Volvos. So thankfully they shared most of the same mounting locations and screw holes for these items. Now moving over onto my 240 Wagon, I'll show you what I came up with. Here is my original cluster back fully installed, but you'll see now I have a working tachometer. I had to make the holes for the illumination bulb housings a little bigger, and the tachometer and full lighting is working perfectly. It's amazing that I only had to connect the signal wire to the back of the tachometer, and all the rest is dealt with contact pins that the tachometer or clock slides into on the back of the cluster. It ended up being a super fun endeavor and a bit of a learning experience.